Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Jason Noble, and my partner in crime today is Jason Whitehead. Welcome for another episode of the Jason's Take On. On this month's webinar, we're going to be talking about the value of customer success expertise versus domain expertise. It's a topic that both Jason and I have seen come up in lots of conversations just with the customer success network, with different executives out there. With organizations that are looking at building their teams, and when we've been both looking at either new engagements or new opportunities ourselves. So as normal, we're targeting about 35 minutes for the length of the webinar. It is a live podcast. There are no slides that we're presenting, no video as part of this. We will be taking questions as we go along. And so please do put them in the question box and we will answer them at the end. So put the questions in the Q&A window. Don't forget, we've also got the Jason's Take On LinkedIn group and Twitter handles. So please, we want to keep the conversations going. So feel free to pose any questions that you have during the session there that we will endeavor to answer afterwards or pose them afterwards, and we'll really get some really good conversations going. Don't forget, for subscribers to our webinar, we have a regular newsletter that comes out. We'll periodically send out information and tools that we think you'll find useful in the world of customer success for everyone as customer success professionals and leaders. And we'll also be sharing more subscriber-only content as we go forward, which I think we're going to find that you guys are going to find really, really useful. So we're really getting excited about that. Don't forget, we've also started our guest podcast recordings. We've had 2 out so far. We're actually recording another one this evening. So we're super excited about getting these done. These aren't being done live, but they are available during replays, and they are available as podcasts, webinars, all through your normal podcast channels, Apple, SoundCloud, etc. Don't forget, both Jason and I are available for any follow-up questions that anybody has. We're happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn and talk more about customer success. And we're both available for any coaching or consultation sessions that you have. Quick intros from me before we start. So my name's Jason Noble. I'm based over in sunny London. I've been in the customer success industry probably around 8-9 years, with about 30 years total experience now. And I think I've spent the last 8 or 9 years working with a number of different technology-focused organizations who provide their own technology services to a wide range of different clients, focused from small to medium-sized businesses all the way up to global enterprise level organizations. And really for me, it's about helping businesses be more customer centric. And I've been in a number of different customer focused roles, from customer support through to customer service, to account management, to service delivery, project management, and more recently leadership roles around customer success. And I'm currently with Vinly, a world of connected cars. Vinly is a Dallas-based technology startup business that's helping mobility and transportation companies with data intelligence platforms. So I'm heading up their global customer success function there, and their European time, which is really exciting. Jason, quick intro from you.
Great, thanks very much. Hi everyone, my name is Jason Whitehead. I'm the CEO of Tritons. Really excited to be here. For those of you that don't know me, I've been working in customer success and software adoption for over 20 years now. Half of my business is working with customer success teams, building out strategies, playbooks, training, and coaching. And the other half is actually working hands-on with buyers of software to help them set their own internal success and user adoption teams and programs there. And it's really fun to come in and bridge both worlds of the buyer and the seller of technology and get everyone to come together and really do something more effective than they could do on their own. It's a great pleasure. So I'm really excited to be here. So looking forward to this conversation today, and really appreciate everyone who's joined us week after week for these sessions. So that's just a little bit about me. Let's just jump right in now. And as you all know, we like to start each conversation with sort of a bold challenge question. And for this month, what we want to really ask you is, what sort of bold things can you do to change the perceptions of your customers or internal executives to really see the value in customer success just beyond the one domain or the one industry focus where you are, and really get people to move beyond the expectation of you must have be a domain expert and an industry expert to really focus on the value of customer success expertise and the value that that can bring. So 3 things that we're going to try and cover today that we hope you'll learn from this is, 1, where we think the right balance needs to be between customer success expertise and domain expertise, and why. And 2, we're going to try and how do you get people to prioritize customer success expertise over domain expertise? There's a lot of folks out there that seem to think that industry knowledge and a vast experience within a given sector is absolutely a prerequisite, and we'll be talking about some of the reasons that may not be the case. And then third parts are what are some problems to avoid when staffing your CS team, and as you're looking to move forward, how you might apply this concept of what expertise you really need to really grow a high impact customer success team. So that's where we're going to focus today. We're also going to do something a little bit different right now before we kick off the first question. We actually have a quick poll that I'm going to be launching and asking everyone to go and share and vote with if you could. And really what we'd like to know is, what do you think is more important for staffing your CS team? Is it more important to have domain expertise, that subject matter expertise, or is it more important to have customer success expertise? And I do see we have a few people joining by phone, which obviously will make it a bit of a challenge for them to vote. We're really curious to know your thoughts. So go ahead and answer the poll now if you can. And while you're doing that, Jason, the first question for you, can you just clarify for everyone, what do we mean by domain expertise, versus customer success expertise, and why is it so important that we need to be talking about it?
I think, yeah, it's that kind of grounding as to why now and why are we talking about this. I think both of us in the conversations we've had with each other through the series of these webinars, the podcasts, and kind of throughout the time that we've known each other, that there still is a lot of conversations that leaders are having, executives and organizations, about what customer success actually is. And there are still organizations where it means different things to them, depending on who they are, their level of maturity. There are some organizations where it is more of a sales function. There are some where it's more of a support function. There are some that really don't know where it fits in, and they're creating new organizations that sit under other organizations. So there's a lot of businesses that are going through challenges as to what it means. And while they're doing that, I think they're also challenged with, well, if we don't know what it is, how do we look for that level of expertise? And if they don't know what they're looking for, quite often they revert to, well, let's look for domain expertise. And that we're seeing a lot of that. And both Jason and I have seen a lot of conversations where people are really fixated on needing that domain expertise rather than understanding someone's breadth of experience around working with different customers, making customers successful. And I think that when you're both interviewing as a candidate, or when you're interviewing candidates in there, it's really be clear as to what it is you're looking for, and try and get a broader understanding of what the value of customer success actually means to that organization. And I think that the lack of understanding of what it is and the skills that you need to deliver customer success very well, it often push people down the road of, I need domain expertise, as opposed to anything else. And at the essence, what are we trying to do? We're trying to make our customers successful. And there are, as we'll talk through, a variety of different, both soft and hard skills that you can cover that give you kind of more kind of gravitas when it comes to delivering customer success as a discipline. And I think that with any of us as customer success leaders and professionals, the expertise that we've got is in delivering great customer success and making our customers successful. And that can apply across a wide range of different industries. And I think one of the things that we have an ability to do within customer success, and I think more so than other organizations, is to make that move to other industries very well. Our skills and disciplines are around making customers grow, adding more value to customers, making them have successful outcomes with us. So I think it is very much not only a cross-functional discipline, but a cross-industry discipline. And I think it makes it very easy for individuals to move about within the customer success space and really move into different organizations that want to take advantage of that expertise as to how you make customers successful. But I'll put the next question back to you, Jason. Based on that,
actually, before you do, let's take a quick look at the poll results.
Yeah, and go for it.
Just share with that. So, we'd love your thoughts on this, but it looks like we have a strong preference for CS expertise at 69% to domain expertise at 31%, which, I don't think really surprises me given the audience that we have here, but I think it does also show that there are some different perceptions out there. And as we go through the conversation today, if some people have some thoughts or questions on either side, please enter them in the Q&A box. We'd love to hear your take on that move too. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see that. I mean, there's definitely the preference to having the CS expertise, which I think you and I might have a slight bias as well there, as might the audience, just because we've got customer success professionals. But it's still, a third of people still think that domain expertise is something that's a bigger prerequisite than the customer success. So it's a really interesting split there. And yeah, as Jason said, please do. We'd love any questions, any thoughts as to why you voted one way or the other one. But let me pose the next question back to you, Jason. What skills do you think are most important, and why, when it comes to customer success, both from a customer success expertise and domain expertise? And why do you think that people might have a preference of one of these over the other? And what have you seen in your experience dealing with different organizations that you've worked with?
Right. I think, as we've talked, Jason, for me, and I think for us, is the really priority is having the CS expertise is more important. And I think some of the expertise that we want people to have is, can they actually prove and demonstrate a situation where they made a customer successful and made that customer more successful than the customer has been able to be on their own, or get better results than being able to achieve before working with you as a customer success leader. And, I don't really care what they have on their title, if it's customer success or customer service or something else entirely different, but being able to share how they've helped customers achieve more than they can on their own is really key. And I think the other thing is really important is having people who have had customer-facing roles that really require them to work with customers in a unique way and make them successful. It could be account management or professional services or customer support or even sales or something like that. But really, someone who is very comfortable being hands-on with customers and understand what it means to understand, identify what a customer is really trying to achieve, what their needs are, and helping them find a solution that they didn't get there on their own. If you haven't listened to it yet, we had a guest on here, Sue Farrow, who said, she's hired people from all different types of jobs, like people who've worked in a gym, people who've done other customer service roles in completely different industries with no expertise in their software whatsoever, no expertise in their product, but had transferable experience and transferable skills. And she talks about how she was able to build just a really high impact, great team because she really got creative in how she interviewed people and what she was looking for and the traits that she wanted. And I think that's really important. I think some of the other things too that I've seen is, having someone who's flexible and has worked across multiple roles. And, Jason, as we discussed, someone really that horizontal focus who can really work across all the different touch points with the customer and understand how the customer is experiencing working with your company all the way through, as opposed to someone with that deep industry expertise. Some people like that vertical focus, like you must be subject matter expertise within your industry, have been there for years and years and years. But I don't necessarily think that's so key. And I think something else that comes up all the time for me is, someone who's really empathetic and comfortable in their own skin. Most every client I've had that comes to us for training and coaching for their team, they really focus on, I want my team to be more proactive. I want them to be comfortable leading customers in business outcomes discussions, and I want them to be comfortable trying to get the customer to do something new and different. And consistently what I hear is, my team is great around this, but here are a couple of people that I'm really concerned just don't have what they need for this role. And when we work with them, they're often very, very professional, very gifted in some domain expertise, but they will never really be that comfortable leading the customer. And even after training and coaching and support, they improve a bit, but they never quite get to the point that they're going to be happy in that role. And it's really interesting to see if someone just doesn't have that natural empathy and comfortableness in their own skin. And I think that really comes to the other piece too, is finding someone who is comfortable challenging customers and leading them and getting to think about doing things differently is really key. And that's not something that everyone's into. So I think for me, those are some of the key skills that we see. But then I think to your other question, why do I think people have a preference for one or the other expertise? I think there's a lot of folks who don't necessarily understand customer success, don't understand some of the activities and traits that you need to do to really deliver effective customer success services. That oftentimes it's executives in other departments or CEOs who don't work in all the details, that they assume that you must have industry expertise, and that without it, one, you won't be able to deliver your job, and two, that customers won't see you as credible. And I think as you get to learn more about the traits that are needed in the role, if you can't, in the unlikely event that you can find the full team that you want with deep industry expertise and deep customer success expertise, you really need to say, okay, what's going to be more effective? And I think consistently I've seen it's the CS expertise. So those are just some of my thoughts on that. And, Jason, if you have others, would love to hear it. Otherwise, maybe what you can do, Jason, is tell us, what mistakes do you see many people making when they're staffing their CS team, and what skills and expertise they hire for that actually hurts them?
I like this. It's kind of the opposite of what you've just answered. And I just to kind of reiterate one thing that you've said that really I think is such an invaluable thing that we need to look for is that horizontal breadth of experience. It isn't just about someone who's worked as a customer success manager. I want someone that's worked in different customer facing roles that understand the challenges of the different parts of the organization and the different stages of the life cycle for the customer. And I think one of the mistakes that people often do is that they look for, so say they are focused on people with customer success experience, but they look for someone that's just got so many years as a customer success manager and narrow down the focus too quickly and don't look at someone that's got the breadth in different roles. So I think you've got to almost open up the search to not narrow it down and focus it too quickly and really look at the right type of people, as you said, that have got the right skills, the right attitude, the right aptitude and expertise outside of that particular area of focus. I think we've said there are lots of people who focus on domain expertise and the CS expertise, but if you do that, it just reduces the pool of potential kind of candidates and expertise that you're looking at. But it also means that you're missing out on that much more broader audience of potentially fantastic people that could easily step in and help your customers be more successful and grow your customers and help deliver outcomes, but might not have the label attached to their name. And I think that's super important to really be aware of that. Make sure you're broadening the searches properly. I think that, I'd also look at people label change the roles too often. And what I've seen, and I know you have as well, Jason, that people change account management or sales, business development, calling it customer success. They call account managers customer success managers. Be very conscious about label changing the roles when it's actually not creating a new function. It's just calling it something because someone says we should be doing this. Investors, for example, might think that you need a customer success team just to get the next level of investment. Clearly, there's a lot more to it than that. But be very conscious about just label change. And through kind of exploratory questions, you can understand a lot better what these functions are doing. And I think you also, the challenge that you've got with hiring people that aren't right for the customer success function is what it can do is it can lengthen the recruitment process. I've seen that myself. It is very difficult, both when you're looking for a new role yourself, but also when you're building the teams. It can absolutely lengthen the process. But I think lengthening it is not necessarily a bad thing. It's about finding that right person, the right focus, and by broadening it, you quite often can see other people there. What you also don't want to do is put people in the wrong place, and the same with the kind of relabeling of the function. If you move people from reactive from a support role into proactive success role, you're not going to make them successful. They are potentially very different individuals that work very differently. And you've got to think about the right people and how they move into these roles. I think, as I said earlier on as well, don't just make customer success part of another team, having it as part of sales or support. You also need the right framework, the right basis behind it. And that, Jason, you and I have spoken about that in other podcasts. How do you build up the right team from scratch? Where does it report into? And that really is important to consider. And I think the other key thing is, don't forget, you're a good customer success professional. It's much more than just being able to build a relationship. You've got to, how do you be proactive? How do you drive more value? How do you have those difficult conversations, exactly as you said? How do you lead customers there? So don't just focus on someone that can build relationships and forge relationships, but someone that can really drive value for customers. What you ultimately want is your customer success person on the team or team of people really to be viewed as part of the business that are experts and who the customers can use to help them achieve more success than they're on their own. And I think if you can't quickly demonstrate that value to the customers really they kind of lose values to what you're doing. And those conversations become a lot more difficult to have. So I think you need the right level of expertise as understanding where the customers are in their life cycles, what challenges there are, and to you bringing that breadth of experiences to how you've seen it before. And I think if you do focus too quickly and look at hiring only people from a specific industry or for specific domain, you really lose out and miss out on the opportunity of bringing in people with great practices and ideas that have worked so well in other industries that might have come through similar stages to the industry that you're in, gone through similar kind of cycles there of growth, of innovation. You might miss out on people that have got that kind of startup, scaling up experience. So really try and broaden the search. And I think it's really important to do that. it kind of poses a question that I go back to you, Jason. Actually, someone's thrown a question on the Q&A, which is along the same lines here. But what about highly specialized industries or highly specialized SaaS products? You know, do you think there that domain expertise is even more important? And do you think all of our customer success professionals and staff need a certain level of domain expertise?
You know, this is one that comes up for me all the time. You know, as a consultant, constantly working in different industries, and you know, I would say probably not that you don't need everyone to have that deep expertise, but you might need a couple of people within your team, within the customer success team, to be those industry subject matter experts who can really, you know, can bring that deep knowledge when they need to. But you don't have to need that in every position. And it could be that these people with the deep expertise who also have some overlapping skill set, they might be in more of your senior positions in your CS team, but not necessarily the lead role, but up there. But really, you know, making sure that they have the time and responsibility to help guide the other staff members and to share their industry knowledge and expertise and best practice with the other CS team members so that they can quickly learn and gain the credibility they need. Or if they find a customer that has unique challenges and problems, having that subject matter expert within your CS team who can help with them is key. But that doesn't mean everyone needs to have that, and not everyone needs to have it from the start. And I really believe that if you have the right people and if you hire people for a skill set where they're very quick learners, you know, they can build expertise pretty quickly. And you know, one of the nice things is when you are working closely with customers, especially if you're in a high touch environment, but even low touch as well too, as you start to work with them and you uncover their specific business challenges and you learn more about how they're structured and how their processes work and what they're trying to achieve, you gain up some pretty good stories and insights pretty quickly if you know what to listen for and you know how to share that. And then you can package it up and share those experiences with other customers across your book of business. And I think you can really build that expertise quickly. So you can easily get away with one or two people on your team being that SME. So you don't, and I think this is an important point. If you have a designated industry expert in your team, make sure that they are within the CS team, because you don't want to be, you know, the person who always has to go to sales or service or some other department to find that in-house expertise. You want it in your team, but you don't need everyone to need to do it that way. And I think if you take that approach where you have a couple of resident experts or one of them, how do you structure your team to really allocate work so that this expert, the SME, is able to help guide the rest of the CS team and support them and make sure they have the time and then they're not fully focused on delivering their own, servicing their own customers, but part of their role is helping others. You know, I think this sort of comes back to the whole idea, you know, are you working in your business or are you working on your business? So if someone is so fully allocated to just delivering great customer success services, they don't have the ability to really help build up the capacity of the rest of the team. So really think about that, give them that capacity to work on building the team and building your CS capabilities. You know, and I think, you know, Jason, one of the other things that we've talked about and comes up quite a bit, you know, with a lot of my customers is, you say, I can train for attitude, but I can't train for aptitude. You know, you can, if someone has that the right core skills and that eagerness to learn it and to go there, you can quickly train people on industry and regulations and history and see how that goes. And, you know, I think when you look at people who work in consulting or legal services or other type of things like that, where you're constantly bouncing around between an industry, you quickly learn how to ask the right questions and find the important parts and making sure that you can then do the deep dives when you need to. You can get through pretty well and add a lot of value to customers because the chances are your customer has a lot of industry expertise that they need. The expertise that they need is how do they get value from using software and using technology and using your tool that they can't get on their own. And it's a very different skill set. So I think that's really important. And you know, when I work with customers and when I'm working with customer success teams, helping them to understand positioning yourself as an expert in the process of customer success and how you use tools and technology more effectively to achieve a business outcome. That's the expertise that you're bringing. That's the expertise that they're lacking and frankly they need. So you don't have to be the deep dive domain expert. And if you position yourself with your expertise and show how this is the skills that they need, you know, they'll see you as the go-to person. They'll see a lot of the value that you have. So those are just some of my takes on it. You know, but Jason, let me throw this next question to you then. You know, as we're talking about that, is there a certain mix of skills that CSMs need to have or the ability to quickly acquire? And what should you do if your current team members don't have these skills and expertise?
I love the point that you kind of covered there about subject matter experts. And I think another kind of evolution on from that I've seen great success within a number of organizations I've worked is creating, and I've seen my customers do the same, is the idea of a center of excellence. So at the center of your center of excellence, you've got your subject matter expert, but you don't want to be reliant on just that one person. So how does that person build out different layers of expertise depending on what those roles and functions are within the organization, so that you've got a number of layers of expertise to go to rather than just reliance on that. So I think that's something that ties in really neatly with what you've taught there. I think really the key thing when you look at it in the world of customer success as a customer success professional, a manager or a leader, a lot of it's about mindset. And I love Jeff's just put a comment in the Q&A session. You hire for traits and teaching the trade, and that's an old saying, and it is. But the mindset, I think, is even more important when it comes to customer success. You've got to have somebody and a function, a leadership function that can really empathize with customers. You know what you're there to do for your customers. It's not about always saying yes to customers, but it's about driving those conversations, adding value for your customers, being responsive to change. Most organizations now are in a world of change. And for me, one of the key things about being customer centric is how we help our customers on that journey and are responsive to the changes they're going through. So I think you've got to be very nimble and very agile and have a really transparent and open mindset as well. And I think that there is a level of industry expertise needed. And I've seen in a number of organizations recently where customer success managers that don't know the industry are out of the depth very quickly. They're not being given the right training, and that can break relationships with customers. So you've got to get the balance right. And I think, yes, you can absolutely run through training courses, domain expertise, just to give them an insight into what the industry is, what the challenges are. The product information there as well is super, super important to get them built up. So you need someone that can come in and learn product very quickly as well. I think on the question about what do you do if your current team members don't have the right skills, there's clearly a number of different options there. You of course can train, develop your staff. There are many career paths moving into customer success from other parts of the business. I've seen people move in from sales, from marketing, from support, from operations, and it's a very, very fulfilling career path. I think as long as you've got the right structure there to help support the team do that, it's a really good thing to do. So you can build and develop the staff. What you can also do is clearly there are times when you need to look at replacing staff if people aren't the right fit for the business, aren't the right fit for the role, aren't the right fit for the customers, the direction you're going in. And I think both approaches here, either developing or looking at changes in the structures, are both absolutely valid, but clearly they depend on the person, the people, and the actual situations. And don't forget, I mean, there's an investment required in developing and training staff, and actually replacing staff as well is not a short-term option. You've got to think about the level of cost and effort required to do that. And I think you've also got to look at, particularly when it comes to customer success, the personality, the type of people you've got. Would they be able to fit into the role? Will they be able to grow into the role? Do they like the direction that customer success is moving in? We said earlier on at the beginning that it means so many different things to different people. To come into an industry that is changing like that, can the people fit into it? Some people can't, and you've got to be really conscious about that. So I really think it is about customer success is more about a type of person. When we spoke the other day, Jason, we talked about the culture of customer success, and I think I really like that idea that it is its own culture and its own way of thinking, its own industry, which is really important. And as we've said here, and as Jeff said in the comments, you can absolutely train for domain and aptitude and the expertise, but the personality and culture far less to train about. So the question as well is, does the person that wants to move into the CS role, do they fit this CS culture? It's far more about working across the business in the different roles than a lot of other pieces of the organization. So does this person fit what you're trying to do there? And think beyond the product. We're not just delivering education. We're not just delivering people how to do this. We're trying to demonstrate value and help. You said it earlier on. We're talking people through business changes and changing how they work on a day-to-day basis. That's tough to do. And have you got the right people that can focus on that? I don't know if there are any thoughts that you had on that, Jason.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of key points, but one thing that I really want to stress too, and this is from someone who actually delivers customer success trainings. I think many people make the mistake as well too of, we'll just do a quick training program. We'll give them a couple of days of instruction or a class, or we'll give people a quick quick little crash course in industry jargon, industry terminology, and then just sort of leave it at that. And what I've seen consistently is really shifting the mindset from training to developing staff, and really thinking through how do we give them more than just a single point in time training course. One of the people often come to us and talk about training. I try to make the distinction between what I call big T and little T training. But big T, is like training is education. You're sitting in a classroom, you may be doing exercise that may be very participative, it could be online, but it really is a single event kind of thing. Where, small T training is more like training as conditioning, like with athletes and like when you train animals, it's that constant reinforcement, that constant conditioning, and constantly improving people forward. And I think you really need to figure out how do we give this conditioning program to our CS staff and team members so that they're constantly growing both their expertise and capabilities, but also in their careers as well too. So, what sort of coaching do they need? What sort of support do they need? How do you get them to work through case studies and real life problems through customer call? Many of our customers, after we deliver a training course, we have several follow-on reinforcement sessions to deep dive and walk through what are some specific examples, how do we reinforce this? Because what we found is when we don't do that, after a few weeks or so, people start to fall back into their old habits and their old behavior. So, if you're really trying to build industry knowledge, but also customer success expertise, really think about that reinforcement and mentoring. For those who haven't heard of it, I'm also co-founder of CS Mastermind, so csmastermind.com, which is an ongoing professional development program where we really embrace these topics. So I urge you to check that out. Quick shameless plug there. But one of the other things I've seen people do that I think is great and really excited, we're actually going to have a guest come on and talk to us, and I hope she'll talk about this, is really saying, what we've changed with this job is so much from what it was before. That, our staff already had a customer success title, but we've changed fundamentally our approach to customer success. We've changed fundamentally our job for this. We're going to actually make our staff reapply for this because it's so different than what it was. Many staff who are currently having these job titles wouldn't actually apply for this job today, and we probably wouldn't hire them for it. They don't really have the skills and the aptitude of what we need. So really thinking through, hey, this is an entirely new version of customer success. We need to really make sure that we have the right team and that we're hiring people who will be successful and that will enjoy this role. And really some exciting things about that. I think it's such an important thing to think about, that just because you have a team doesn't mean that it's the right team for the role that you want it to be. Quick caution, there are obviously some HR processes around this, and you need to look at employment law, which can vary quite considerably between states and countries and other things. And if you're in a union environment, you need to consider some of the impacts around that too. So it's not an easy exercise, it's not a fast exercise, but it's an important one if you decide that what we expect from CS and from our staff from Philly is very different. So just something that I want to throw out there in terms of what I see as some of the differences.
I think you've got some really key points there, Jason. I like, the mentoring thing, I think is so important. That's where I think the value of bringing CS leaders in that have got experience from a broader set of the business can really help. You can really help the rest of the team understand the different challenges businesses and customers might have, rather than someone that's just got that one domain expertise or just got experience as a customer success manager. It's someone who's worked across the different businesses. And I think that really, as someone from a mentor and kind of a coach, it really helps them. What are your thoughts, Jason? What would you do executives within a business have perhaps an unrealistic expectation even, or requirement for a too high a level of domain expertise? What are your thoughts around that? So how do you, as a CS professional, a CS leader, someone coming into a role or building a team, how do you go about helping your executives understand some of the key points that we've gone through here? What are some of the experiences that you can bring to the team?
And that is one that I do encounter quite frequently is, a lot of executives have this expectation around, we must have subject matter expertise in everyone who works here, and our customers demand that. And it's kind of interesting with a lot of the work that I do, we also go and talk to customers and on behalf of our clients. And many times we'll ask questions where no, they're like, we have that in-house, we don't need that, but we need this that we don't have, or we've never said we need that. But, as a consultant, as I mentioned before, you go into all different industries and you have to quickly win trust and demonstrate your ability to learn, and also that you bring some sort of expertise that they lack internally, and you can really position yourself and show the value that you bring that they desperately need, but they many times didn't even realize they need. And as I often say, there's a lot of times people spend a lot of effort looking for the best answer to the wrong questions. So how do you get so I often get to the mind of how do I reach this executive where they are, and how do I get them to shift their thinking? And sometimes it's really asking about the outcomes that they're trying to achieve, and sort of work backwards. Why do they assume this domain expertise is the only way you can get there, even the best way to deliver this outcome? And are there ways that you can show how you can be even more successful with a different expertise, or how you've worked in a situation where everyone thought they knew that expertise, but then it turns out the way they'd structured the team, or the way the problem wasn't quite what people thought they were when they deep dive into some of the more details, that the executives can have this aha, oh, maybe this isn't the right approach after all. But doing it in a way where the executives can save face, but they can have that aha moment, that light bulb moment is pretty key. And a lot of times as you're going through that, really get them to identify and check any assumptions that they're making, and have them come into some specifics, and then sort of show them some alternatives that might work more effectively. Because I think as you go through, and sometimes this is also a very practical matter where the host of expertise that they want is not readily available to them, or it's cost prohibitive in the marketplace, or it's not geographically convenient. So, as they start to realize, oh, what I was really sure I needed, I can't actually find, or I can't find in the time frame that I need. So let's think about some alternatives. So those are some of my experiences, but Jason, I know you've had examples around this as well too, especially as you've been on the side of applying for jobs, but also working in different industries. So what are some of your experiences?
Yeah, I think you raised some really key points there. I think one thing that, a particular industry where I've seen this to be a big challenge, and I don't quite know why, is the world of HR and HR technologies. And I know of at least 3, maybe even 4 organizations that I've either, probably the last kind of year, 6 months ago, been helping coach, guide them, and also looking at opportunities with them to build customer success teams, that they were looking for people having dedicated dedicated HR expertise and extensive. And it seems to be a theme that I've seen it in HR. Now, that may be that there are regulations, there are legal considerations there, but it seems to be a lot more prevalent in HR than it is in other industries I've seen. And as I said, I've seen a number of organizations, and I've actually provided guidance to these organizations to help them on the broader CS piece, but gone through a number of different conversations to help them understand that there is kind of a broader piece they need to look at. And I think for me, as an external person, either as the person who's the applicant for one of the positions that they're looking at, or if you're someone that's doing consultancy, what you've got to try and do is really, I think about is broadening the question, rephrasing the questions that they're looking for, and get them to actually articulate what is the outcome that they want. There's very little that you can actually do to control what their ask is as an external person, but I think you can help them rephrase what they're looking through and talk them through. It's a more consultative based questioning process, but why do they think they're looking at this? What are the important traits? How is this person going to deliver value to you, to your customers? How are they going to help build and scale the team? Really think about your level of questioning and talk them through that. And also question, what about someone else coming in with external expertise that might have done this, made customers successful, built these teams, built these organizations in different industries? Bring them into kind of to light the expertise that you've got that's perhaps more external for them than they'd normally see. And I like the idea of asking questions that really can help them see a potential blind spot and gaps in their thinking, and help them reframe the need that they've got. It really gives them something to think about. So a lot of it is about that more consultative style questioning, to really dig down to, what is the why? Why are we doing this? And what are they actually looking for? And I think internally, when you're building a CS function, you're an existing CS team, how do you convince your exec team, your CEO, when you're hiring people, that it isn't just about domain expertise? And I think that can equally be as challenging. And I've seen a number of organizations that I've worked with over the years who are insisting that we need there's a digital marketing organization some years back that I was with. We needed somebody that got that level of industry expertise. And I think so you've got the same internal challenges, but equally try and change the question. Get the exec, your sponsor, to see that the role and the expertise that you're bringing and that your staff and team are bringing is customer success. It's about making your customers successful and delivering their successful business outcomes. It isn't about you as the HR expert. If you've built your team structure up internally and you've got the ideas of centers of excellence, you've got subject matter experts, there's elsewhere you can bring that. And really, I think what you want to try and do as well is bring other sponsors within the organization to help engage your CEO to get them to understand the challenges you see there. So it's not just you as the CS leader. I hate using the terminology, but fighting your own battle. It's how do you get it to be a joint proposition that we're going, saying actually it isn't about domain expertise, it's about a broader expertise, but you've got your peers helping you, your other members of the leadership team helping you do that when you're trying to get your sponsorship for the new roles. And I think you've also got to go through and really talk about how difficult it is to actually find qualified staff, to find those magical unicorns, so to speak, with both extensive customer success experience and domain expertise. Those people probably don't exist. And as we've said earlier on, and quite a few people have commented, you can train for the industry expertise a lot easier than I can train for the ability from someone to be focused on customer success. So they're just a couple of my thoughts. We've had a couple of questions in that we'll kind of go through before we close out. And Jason, I'll let you take the first question. We've had about 3 in total, but the first one is here. If you've got a wide range of different stakeholders that the customer success function and people in an organization have to engage with, how do you go about engaging with senior stakeholders, end users? There's a very different level of audience that you're speaking to. How do you gauge the level of domain expertise to deal with these different stakeholders in the organization?
Yeah, I think that one comes up quite a bit too. And, it depends on your customer and where they are. So there are some people that you need to just be a part of the role is being comfortable talking with C-suite executives at a very large company right down to the end users. And, most projects that I'm on, I have to run that whole gamut. And I need to be able to talk with end users and frontline staff to be able to identify some issues and then elevate them up to the C-suite. So it's not always the easiest thing to do, but you can structure your teams accordingly as well too, if possible. Say, are there some ways that we can break things up around this and get different people to do different things or different rules. So it's not always the easiest piece to do. So I don't know if that's the best answer here. I'm still trying to reread the question a little bit.
So I think you covered some really key points there, because it is about different levels of experience as well. And I think you hit some really key things earlier on about how you can look at coaching and mentoring. And somebody, a CSM coming in brand new to the business might not necessarily be the right person to engage with a CEO, but you can coach them through it and sit them on other calls.
Yeah, and as I'm reading the question more too, I think one of the other things I've seen effective is, as the customer success person, how do you get other people within your organization to be saying the same sort of messages and be an amplifier for what you're trying to do? So, if there's an account manager, how do you make sure you're building relationships so that the account manager knows how to answer questions in a way when they're dealing with the senior stakeholders that will reinforce what you're trying to say, or even get them to be a proxy for you and say, look, here's an issue we're dealing with at the frontline staff. Can you go and have this conversation since you have a relationship with this person? And I think as you get more mature in your CS capabilities and you work longer with your sales team or other members of your organization, figure out how you can use them, because the issue is not that you have to be the one to have those conversations, that those conversations need to happen on behalf of your company with your customer, and they have to be lined up and synced up so that the message is getting through and getting reinforced. But Jason, let me ask you then, with an education-based company, who would you have in your CS team? Just the customer support account managers, or also team members like editors and developers?
I think it's an interesting question, that, and actually it goes back to what we said earlier on. It's almost relabeling an existing team, and I'd be very conscious about, my CS team shouldn't be my support team and account managers. It should be my customer success team, and I need to make sure that I've got to have the right people in that. And I wouldn't necessarily look at people in the team as, do I need editors and developers in the team? No, I need my customer success team to be able to collaborate with my product team, my editors, so that everybody in the business is focused on customer success. It isn't about them all being part of that team. And it actually poses an interesting question, that if everyone is about making our customers successful, maybe everybody is part of the overall customer success way of thinking. So it could be a very philosophical way of thinking. But I think if you look at your customer success team, for me, it consists of customer success managers of different levels of expertise. It consists of my implementation onboarding team and an operational analytical part of the business. I think that's the key piece for me. I think another question that's come in, Jason, here is one for you that I'll pass back to you. How do you deal with a team that is growing with a new SaaS platform in terms of client expectations and fielding different client challenges and expectations? And how do you keep your team motivated while they're dealing with the challenge of a developing product?
Mm-hmm. That's one that I get quite a bit because, I work with several startups as well too, where, their product is not mature or it's sort of minimal viable product or aspiring minimal viable product as they're out there working, and they're working really hard to build it and mature it, and they've got some great vision. And the CS staff, I think many times get very product focused as opposed to business outcome focused, and they spend a lot of time hearing complaints from customers about the product or having to explain some of the limitations when it's coming. That can be really hard to do. What I found helpful is really helping your CS team to just be direct with customers and say, look, this is where we are in this development phase, and we've been very transparent about this, and we understand these are some limitations right now. Here's what we're working to address in the time frame by which we hope to have it there. But also just being clear, here's some things that are not really on our roadmap right now that unfortunately, as the product team has had to make some trade-offs and choices about what to invest in first, that's probably not going to happen in the time frame that you want. But here's something else we can do instead. Which those are difficult conversations to have with a customer, but every time teams I've worked with, or even in my own experience, you've just been direct and honest with the customer. They respect you for it, and they can think through and plan around that. But the other point to that too, I think, is helping your CSMs to really be positive and then, answer the questions, point out the limitations, but then focus on all the positive things. Focus on, but here's where we're adding more value. Here's some other ways you can get value you probably didn't know about, or here's some ways you can be even more successful that you probably haven't thought to think about, but let's do this instead in the meantime. And then as we're moving forward, we'll come back and evaluate this other problem. I know it's important to you, but this is what we can do in the meantime. This is how you can benefit today. So would you rather do that instead? And finding some nice polished ways to have that conversation, depending on the nature of it, can be very, very helpful. But also, if necessary, making sure that your CS team has a venue by which that you are supporting their emotional needs and giving them an opportunity to share some frustrations or vent, or say, how should I have handled this differently, or how did we handle this so that I can be more confident and comfortable going forward? Because it can be tough day in and day out having people berate you and be down on you, especially for things that are outside of your control and not your fault. So make sure you're paying attention to that too to really keep your team alive. So those are just a couple of things that I found helpful. Jason's got another one here for you. Domain expertise equals immediate rapport, client trust, understanding challenges, deeper requirements, gathering competitive differentiation, et cetera. CS expertise equals understanding how to deal with clients and how to build success stories. Which set of gaps is easier to fill? Wow,
so it is. It's really good, and there's some really good discussion points on the chat as well. And I think you've got that domain expertise, particularly if you're someone that is well known in the industry coming in, can absolutely build rapport and trust. But is rapport and trust sufficient to deliver successful outcomes, and understanding what the successful outcomes are for that customer? And I think the value that you bring in as a CS expert is that you've got that understanding that someone perhaps with just the domain expertise might not have. And the question that Alan raised was a really interesting one. There's a lot of value from coming in as a CS person in an industry where you've got knowledge, because there is, you can't underestimate the value of rapport, trust that comes from knowing the industry. But I still kind of err on the side that it's easier, and I use the word easier loosely, to pick up domain expertise. Yes, there are a lot of regulations I might need to consider. There's a lot of specific expertise, and I can't teach myself 30 years knowledge of an industry overnight. But I think you can pick up key things a lot quicker than you can pick up the essence of what customer success is. So I think it's a really great question, and I think it really depends on industry, depends on the types of customers. I think it's easier to fill the gaps on the domain side of it, but I'm very conscious that there are always some exceptions there.
Yeah, and that one also reminds me of the concept of situational leadership, which have worked through and studied, that someone may be very senior and very expert in one situation, but you put them in an entirely different situation, even within the same industry, or solving a different problem, and they're a complete novice and need a lot more coaching, support, and guidance and step-by-step directions on how to solve that problem. And I think sometimes if you encounter that situation, what would it look like if you could reframe this exact situation that we're encountering, but not using any industry-specific jargon? What if we encounter the same situation in any of these other three non-related industries? Do we have the ability to solve those problems? Have we already solved those problems? And can we show where this is a transferable situation here, that the expertise that you need is based on this situation, not on this industry? And how do you use that to build rapport and trust, and frankly be able to solve the problem faster and pull in those technical details or that industry-specific knowledge where you need it? So just some thoughts from my end. I see we had a lot of questions and activity in the chat window as well as the question window, which I'm really excited about. And it's great to see all this activity and things. And some of the questions that were in the chat window were just to Jason, myself, as a panelist, somewhere to all attendees. So it's great to see the back and forth. Jason, we probably have time for one or two quick questions from the chat window if there's something there that you think we can go to. But I really, I'm so thrilled to see this activity and hope for future episodes that we get just as much. This is great to see.
I think what we'll try and do, there's some really great questions and just some really good discussions. And clearly, I think we've hit on some key points here that it is a balance between the two. I think we're kind of making a very bold general statement, and I think the audience agree with us generally, but there are going to be exceptions. And maybe HR, as I've seen, is one of those exceptions where you do need a certain level of expertise to come into it. And I think it's really fascinating to see that. So I think there's been some really, really good questions that we've seen.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. So maybe given the time and where we are, we'll take a look at these and put some into the LinkedIn group. And I really encourage people to keep this conversation going. It's exciting to see all the different perspectives. There's still a lot going on in the industry. And one of the comments in here I really like is, I feel like I have both sets of skills, but it seems like a lot of the companies still don't know what they want CSMs to do. And I think that is so true. And it's really at the heart of this issue is that until as an organization, you can really identify and structure what is the problem that customer success is meant to solve. Why are we here? What does this need to look like? And how do we know that we can add more value than the company's been able to add in the past before customer success? It's going to be really hard to really get people to focus and identify that. So really coming up with some of those visionings. And sometimes you have to be bold and challenge folks and just ask them, why is it you think that? How did you get to that conclusion? What alternatives did you consider? And why don't we try this instead? So
I like that. And I think that it's that questioning. I think what we've tried to illustrate here as well, and I think some really good points come up, is how do you question that more legacy style of thinking and kind of expand it and really show that there's a different way of doing this? And I think some of the audience chat here about kind of what is customer success is an ongoing challenge. It is right now. And despite the fact that the industry is rapidly maturing, and we've got some instances where it's very mature, you've still got to help educate businesses and leaders as to what the value of it is and how we are making customers successful.
Absolutely. So with that as the end of our discussion part, I just wanted to come back to our bold challenge question and the three things that we hope to cover today and see how we did here. So for the bold challenge question, what bold things can you do to go and change perceptions of your customers or your internal executives to help them really see the value in customer success just beyond the domain expertise or the industry expertise? How do you shift their thinking and realize that what they're asking for may not be what they need to solve their problems, and what will actually reach them where they are? Three things we hope you learned and that we covered is where we think the right balance between the two needs to be and why, and how do you get to prioritize customer success over domain expertise. And then we also tried to talk about some of the problems to avoid when staffing your CS team. So it's really been fun for us, and I loved the discussion that's gone back and forth in the chat window, and really excited, and thank you so much for everyone who joined us. Hope you will join us in September, where we'll be looking at customer success as a competitive differentiator. The registration is available now. Really good discussion, because I think there's huge financial implications and really some great areas where CS can really add value and grow their role, their responsibility, and their respect in the company and in the industry. So I'm really excited about that conversation. So for me, thank you so much for joining. Jason, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Really enjoyed the conversation as always. I think the last few seem to be some really hot topics that are clearly big points in the industry, which is what we're trying to do, is raise some of these. So we've got an exciting kind of 3 or 4 plan for the rest of the year, starting to think about webinars and podcasts next year. So if anyone, again, as we said at the beginning, we are doing these now with guests. If anyone would like to join us and has a topic that they'd like to discuss with us that's along one of the podcast themes, please do let us know. But a massive thank you from me. Have a great summer if anyone's going away on holiday, and looking forward to speaking again in September.
Great. Take care. Bye now.
Thanks lots. Bye-bye.